The galaxy trembled as a war unlike any other raged on. Deep in the void of space, the Zarkan Dominion, a terrifying alien empire, was on a mission to conquer and annihilate everything in their path. Their fleet, vast and powerful, seemed unstoppable. They had crushed countless planets of the Galactic Coalition, and now they were setting their sights on the most advanced civilizations the galaxy had ever known. On a distant planet, deep within the heart of the Galactic Coalition's territory, the devastation was clear for all to see. Explosions echoed across the sky as Zarkan warships hovered above, releasing devastating orbital bombardments. The planet's cities, once bustling with life, were now reduced to ashes. The once vibrant landscape was consumed by fire as buildings crumbled into nothing. The defenders of the planet had fought valiantly, but no matter how much they tried, their forces were being overwhelmed. The Zarkan fleet moved with deadly precision, their advanced eye-controlled weapons tearing apart everything in their path. The warships themselves were invisible, cloaked by technology so advanced that no one could see them coming. It was as if the enemy was everywhere, yet nowhere at all. Commander Elias Cross stood on the bridge of a Galactic Coalition flagship, watching the images of the devastated planet flicker on the holographic display in front of him. His face was stoic, but there was a hint of disbelief in his eyes. The battle had been lost. They were losing everything. The Coalition's forces had been fighting for months, but it seemed there was no way to stop the relentless alien forces. How can this be happening? Elias muttered to himself, clenching his fists. We've fought in wars before, but nothing like this. His thoughts were interrupted by the shrill tone of an incoming communication. A distress signal. It was coming from another Coalition planet, but this one was different. The signal was weak, and the voices on the other end sounded desperate. We need help. We can't hold on. The transmission was lost before the full message could be understood, but it was enough. Elias looked at his officers, his mind racing. They were the last line of defense. There was no one else to turn to. It was up to him and his crew to find a way to stop the Zarkan Dominion before it was too late. Elias, one of his officers, a young woman named Sarah, spoke up. The distress signal was from Earth. They're asking for help. Elias's heart skipped a beat. Earth, the homeworld of humanity. It had always been considered a backwater, insignificant planet by the rest of the galaxy. The alien species had mocked humanity for its primitive technology, for its chaotic history, and its lack of the advanced technologies the Zarkan Dominion had mastered. To most alien species, Earth was nothing more than a joke. But now, they were asking for help. Earth, Elias muttered again, his mind racing. They've always been underestimated. They're a death world, aren't they? How could they possibly have anything that could stop the Zarkans? A brief silence filled the room as Elias processed the information. Then, a voice broke through the tension. Sir, we've received another transmission. It's encrypted. It's from Earth's government. They say they've developed a secret weapon. They call it Project Genesis. Elias looked at the officer who spoke, his brow furrowing. Project Genesis. What is that? We don't know, sir. The transmission was heavily encrypted. But whatever it is, it seems to be the last hope for us. Elias felt a glimmer of hope, but it was fleeting. How could a single weapon, no matter how advanced, stand against the might of the Zarkan fleet? They had already destroyed entire civilizations with their eye-controlled war machines. Earth may have been the birthplace of humanity, but to the galaxy, it was a planet of no consequence. And yet Elias couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Earth than anyone realized. There had to be something about humanity that the Zarkans had missed, something that made them different from the other civilizations that had fallen before them. Could it be that the Zarkans were underestimating Earth just as they had underestimated humanity itself? As Elias mulled over the possibilities, the bridge crew worked feverishly to decode the encrypted message. Minutes felt like hours as Elias watched them struggle to unlock the secrets of the transmission. He couldn't afford to waste time. The Zarkan fleet was already on the move, heading toward Earth. Every second counted. Then, as if on cue, the communications officer spoke. "Sir, we've got it." The crew gathered around as the officer projected the message onto the main screen. It was a short but powerful message, a single line of text. "Project Genesis is ready. Humanity's weapon is prepared to fight." Elias's eyes widened. He didn't know what this weapon was or how it worked, but the message was clear. Earth was offering a solution. Humanity, in their own way, had prepared something that could fight back against the Zarkan threat. But there was one question that lingered in his mind. Could they trust it? Could they trust Earth's secret weapon to actually make a difference, or would it prove to be just another empty promise? Before he could consider the implications any further, the ship's radar officer shouted, "Sir, we've got incoming." Elias's eyes snapped to the screen. A fleet of Zarkan warships had appeared out of nowhere, as if they had materialized from thin air. They were moving quickly, preparing to engage Earth's defenses. It was clear that the Zarkans had no intention of letting humanity join the fight. They had underestimated Earth for so long, and now they were coming to destroy it. "We need to act now," Elias said, his voice firm. "Prepare the fleet for battle. We'll support Earth. If Project Genesis is humanity's last hope, then it's our last hope too." The crew nodded, and with that, the decision was made. Earth, the planet once mocked by the rest of the galaxy, would now play a pivotal role in the survival of the galaxy itself. As the Galactic Coalition fleet prepared for the final confrontation, a new feeling took root within Elias, a feeling he hadn't experienced before. Hope. The fate of the galaxy might not rest solely in the hands of advanced alien empires or AI-controlled machines. It might just be humanity that turned the tide. But the question remained, what was Project Genesis, and would it be enough to save them all? The galaxy was stunned into silence when Earth's fleet emerged from a hidden wormhole, its arrival unexpected and shrouded in mystery. The Galactic Coalition, still reeling from the assault of the Zarkan Dominion, watched in awe and confusion as humanity's ships surged forward, moving with a grace and speed that no one had ever anticipated. The Zarkan fleet had been prepared for every scenario, every possible defense from the Coalition, but they had never prepared for Earth's arrival. The Zarkans had always underestimated humanity. For centuries, they had been seen as nothing more than a primitive species stuck on their small, isolated planet, far from the technological advancements of the greater galactic civilizations. But now this fleet, bearing the weight of humanity's secret weapon, was about to change everything. The ships that emerged from the wormhole were sleek and deadly, their advanced technology unlike anything the Zarkans had ever seen. They moved faster than anything the aliens had ever encountered, their hulls reflecting the cold light of distant stars as they closed in on the battle. "What is this?" a Zarkan officer screamed, his voice tinged with disbelief as he watched the Earth fleet on his radar. "These ships, they should be nowhere near us. They're moving too fast. It's impossible." The Zarkan fleet's eye-controlled systems scrambled to adjust, trying to calculate the trajectory and speed of the incoming Earth ships. But it was clear, they were outmatched. The Zarkan ships were technologically advanced, but the Earth fleet was something entirely different. As the Earth fleet entered the battlefield, a sudden wave of shock swept through the Zarkan ranks. The forces, previously so confident in their superiority, found themselves facing something they had never expected. "Sir, we've identified them," one of the Zarkan commanders said in disbelief, his voice trembling. "The humans, they've developed a new kind of soldier. We never thought they were capable of this." The Zarkan fleet began to prepare for battle, but they were too late. The first strike came without warning. A squad of Genesis soldiers appeared on the battlefield, their cloaking devices activated, rendering them invisible to the naked eye. These soldiers were the culmination of Project Genesis, a top-secret initiative that Earth had been working on in the shadows for years. They were more than just human. They were enhanced. Superhuman strength, advanced reflexes, and state-of-the-art cloaking technology made them nearly impossible to detect or defeat. The Zarkan forces were unprepared for the sheer brutality of the assault. The Genesis soldiers, with their advanced weapons and cloaking abilities, moved through the Zarkan ranks like shadows in the night. One by one, they picked off the alien soldiers with precision, their strength and speed overwhelming the Zarkan's superior technology. A Zarkan soldier, who had been confidently tracking a target, suddenly felt a sharp pain in his side. He turned in panic, trying to locate the source of the attack, but the Genesis soldier who had struck him was already gone, blending seamlessly back into the shadows. "Where did they go?" the Zarkan soldier shouted, his voice tinged with fear. "These humans, they're like ghosts." The Genesis soldiers struck again and again, their attacks swift and efficient. The Zarkans, who had once considered Earth to be nothing more than a primitive backwater, were now facing an entirely new kind of enemy. They had never encountered anything like the Genesis soldiers. Humans, yes, but humans enhanced beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. The battle was chaos. Zarkan ships fired blindly, trying to hit the invisible warriors, but it was futile. The humans moved too quickly, their cloaking devices making them almost impossible to target. They weren't just soldiers. They were ghosts of war, striking with lethal force and disappearing before the enemy even had a chance to react. In the midst of this chaos stood Commander Elias Cross, leading the charge. He had been with the Coalition for years, a seasoned veteran of countless battles, but even he couldn't deny the overwhelming feeling of awe he felt as he watched the Genesis soldiers at work. Elias had been briefed on Project Genesis long ago. It had been humanity's last resort, a weapon developed in secret to counter the overwhelming threat posed by the Zarkans. It was designed to turn the tide in the Galactic War, and it was working. The Genesis soldiers were a force to be reckoned with, their strength and skill far surpassing that of any ordinary human soldier. "Commander Cross," a voice called out from behind him. Elias turned to see one of his officers, a young woman named Sarah, approaching. "The Zarkans don't know what hit them. Our soldiers are cutting through their ranks like a knife through butter." Elias nodded, but his expression remained serious. "It's not enough. The Zarkan fleet is still overwhelming. We need more. We need to push them back completely. We can't afford to let them regroup." Sarah's face hardened. "What about the backup from Earth? Are they ready to deploy?" Elias paused, his thoughts heavy. "They're ready. Project Genesis was only the beginning. We've developed a series of new technologies that we've kept hidden from the Zarkans. It's time to reveal them. We have one shot at this." He turned his gaze back to the battlefield. The Zarkans were retreating, but it was clear that this was only the beginning. The Earth fleet was pushing forward, but Elias knew that this battle would be just one of many. If they were going to defeat the Zarkans, they would have to do more than just rely on the Genesis soldiers. Project Genesis had been humanity's best-kept secret, a weapon designed not only to fight but to inspire. It wasn't just about creating a super soldier. It was about proving to the galaxy that humanity was not the weak, primitive species everyone had thought them to be. The Genesis soldiers were a symbol of everything humanity had fought for, a symbol of strength, resilience, and most importantly, hope. Elias walked to the command center of the flagship, his mind racing. "Activate the next phase of the plan," he ordered. "It's time to show the galaxy what humanity is really capable of." As the command was given, the Earth fleet prepared for the next stage of the conflict. The Zarkans had been caught off guard, but that wouldn't last forever. They would adapt, they would learn, and when that happened, humanity would need to be ready. But Elias had a feeling that the Zarkans wouldn't be ready for what came next. They thought they had seen the best humanity had to offer, but they hadn't seen anything yet. The real battle was just beginning. And in the depths of space, as the Genesis soldiers continued their deadly assault on the Zarkan fleet, the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The humans had arrived, and they were far from what anyone had expected. What the Zarkans had failed to realize was that Earth had always been more than just a death world. They had never truly understood humanity's potential. But now, they would learn. The unseen force had arrived, and it was humanity. The clash of metal, the roar of weapons, and the chaos of battle filled the dark expanse of space. But beneath the surface of this war, a deeper struggle raged within the hearts of the Genesis soldiers. They were more than just soldiers. They were a new breed of warrior, the product of humanity's most secret and dangerous experiment. Their superhuman abilities made them lethal on the battlefield, but they also left them questioning their humanity. Among the Genesis soldiers, there was one whose inner turmoil was more apparent than the others. His name was Bonner. Tall, muscular, and deadly, Bonner was a force to be reckoned with. He was the epitome of human evolution. Enhanced strength, advanced reflexes, and reflexes that allowed him to move faster than any human being had ever moved before. Yet despite all of his power, Bonner felt empty inside. His journey had been long, filled with struggles that not only tested his body but also his soul. For all his abilities, Bonner had come to realize that he was not just fighting enemies in battle. He was also fighting himself. The line between man and machine had blurred for him. His enhancements, designed to make him a better soldier, also made him feel like something less than human. His sense of self, his emotions, his very identity. Everything was slipping away, replaced by the cold calculations of a super soldier. One quiet moment, as the battle raged on, Bonner found himself alone in the midst of a destroyed Zarkan ship. The eerie silence of the place mirrored the emptiness he felt inside. His fingers, still blood-stained from the fight, brushed against a broken piece of metal. It was all that was left of his fallen comrades who had given their lives for humanity. Their memories burned in his mind, but the pain, the grief, never seemed to lessen. In the quiet darkness of the wrecked ship, Bonner allowed himself a rare moment of weakness. His breath was shallow as he closed his eyes, the weight of his emotions crashing over him. He remembered the faces of his comrades, the soldiers who had fallen in battle, those who had shared their dreams of a better future. They had fought for something more than just victory. They fought for humanity's survival. And now they were gone. Bonner wasn't sure if it was the pain of their loss or the guilt of surviving that hurt more. They had been his family. But he wasn't like them anymore. He wasn't just human. He was something more, something different. A machine, built for one purpose: to fight. A voice broke through his reverie, snapping him back to the present. It was his squad leader, Dr. Rachel Mendez, calling over his communicator. "Bonner, you still alive?" she asked, her voice sharp but with a note of concern. "We've got a new wave of Zarkan troops coming in. Are you ready for this?" Bonner stood up, wiping the sweat and blood from his brow. He took one last look at the remains of his fallen comrades before snapping back to reality. "Ready," he muttered, his voice a low growl. With a final glance at the shattered remains of his comrades, Bonner turned to rejoin his squad. As he made his way to the battlefield, he pushed aside his emotions. They had no place here. He wasn't Bonner the man anymore. He was Bonner the weapon. But deep down, despite the coldness that had crept into his heart, Bonner couldn't help but feel a flicker of something. It was the same feeling that had kept him going since he had first stepped into the Genesis program. A sense of duty, of purpose. The human part of him, the part that still cared, still remembered, refused to die. Back on the front lines, the Genesis soldiers fought with a ferocity that stunned even their enemies. Their superhuman abilities made them unstoppable. Cloaked in invisibility, they moved through the battlefield, eliminating Zarkan soldiers with ruthless efficiency. But as the battle raged on, it became clear that the tide was turning. The Zarkan forces, once confident in their AI superiority, were now being overrun. The Zarkans had long believed that AI was their ultimate weapon. Their fleet was controlled by highly advanced artificial intelligence, and their soldiers were enhanced by cybernetic implants that made them stronger and more precise. To them, machines were the future. They believed that human emotions, weakness, and unpredictability made humans inferior to their superior machines. But humanity had something that the Zarkans hadn't accounted for, something that couldn't be replicated by any AI or advanced technology. It was humanity's resilience, their drive, and their passion. It was the human spirit, the refusal to give up, even when everything seemed lost. And in that spirit, humanity's secret weapon, Project Genesis, had been born. The Zarkans watched, stunned and disbelieving, as Earth's forces surged forward, refusing to back down. They had underestimated humanity. They had thought that their AI and superior technology would guarantee victory. But now, they were being forced to reconsider everything they had believed. The Zarkan commander, who had once stood at the forefront of the battle with absolute confidence, now found himself doubting his own superiority. The humans had no advanced technology like the Zarkans did. They had no fleets as large, no AI as powerful, yet they were winning. How is this possible? The Zarkan commander muttered to himself as he watched the Genesis soldiers tear through his forces. We have the best technology in the galaxy. How are they beating us? The Zarkans were faced with an unsettling truth. Despite their advanced machines and superior weaponry, they couldn't replicate what humans had, a driving force that AI could never imitate. The Genesis soldiers were proof of that. Back on the battlefield, Bonner fought with a ferocity that seemed to come from somewhere deep within. His fists crashed into Zarkan soldiers with bone-shattering force. His every move was calculated, precise, and yet there was a raw, unrelenting energy that pushed him forward. It wasn't just the enhancements. There was something human about the way he fought. As the battle raged on, the Genesis soldiers became a symbol, not just of power, but of hope. They had come to the galaxy with one purpose: to prove that humanity was not weak. They were not machines like the Zarkans had believed. They were something far more dangerous. They were a force driven by emotion, passion, and a sense of purpose that no eye could ever replicate. In the midst of the battle, Bonner's thoughts returned to his fallen comrades, but instead of sorrow, he felt a burning resolve. They hadn't died in vain. The future of humanity was in his hands, and he would fight for it, no matter what. For the first time in a long time, Bonner felt something stir inside him. It was hope, the belief that they could win, that humanity could win. It was a powerful force, one that no machine could defeat. And so, with his comrades by his side, Bonner pressed forward. He would fight not just for victory, but for something far more important: the future of humanity. The battle between humanity and the Zarkan Dominion had reached its most critical point. The Genesis soldiers, a force like no other, had infiltrated the heart of the Zarkan flagship, the most advanced and heavily fortified ship in the galaxy. Cloaked and invisible, they moved like shadows, their every step calculated, their every action precise. They were humanity's secret weapon, an unstoppable force, a nightmare to their enemies. Inside the flagship, chaos reigned. Zarkan soldiers, once confident in their overwhelming technological superiority, were now scrambling. The Genesis soldiers had breached the heart of their defenses, and the Zarkans didn't know how to stop them. Bonner led the charge, his plasma blade crackling with energy. It hummed as it cut through the Zarkan forces, leaving a trail of scorched metal in its wake. The combination of human strength, advanced technology, and their unique tactics had caught the Zarkans completely off guard. They had never faced anything like this before. Every turn, every corner seemed to hold a new surprise for the Zarkan soldiers, who were ill-prepared for the sheer adaptability of their enemies. The Genesis soldiers moved quickly, systematically disabling the ship's defenses. They used cloaking devices to remain unseen, evading the Zarkans' security systems. But the real shock came when the Genesis soldiers began hacking the Zarkons' eye-control turrets. The Zarkons had always relied on their advanced AI to manage their ship's defenses, but they had never anticipated that humans would be able to infiltrate and control their own machines. Bonner's hands moved swiftly as he interfaced with the ship's AI systems. A series of complex commands flowed through his mind, his fingers tapping quickly on the interface. He was able to hack into the ship's core systems, taking control of the Zarkon turrets that had once fired upon humanity's forces. The turrets, once loyal to the Zarkons, now belonged to humanity. The tables had turned. The Zarkon soldiers could only watch as their own weapons turned on them, tearing through their ranks with deadly precision. The Genesis soldiers didn't stop there. They used their plasma blades and high-tech shields to push forward, cutting through every obstacle in their path. The combination of superior firepower and strategic intelligence made them a force to be reckoned with. Every Zarkon soldier that stood in their way was eliminated swiftly, but not without cost. The Genesis soldiers didn't fight without purpose. Each strike, each move, was calculated. They fought for something more than just victory. They'd fought for survival. In the heart of the Zarkon flagship, Bonner found himself face-to-face with the Zarkon leader, a towering figure clad in the most advanced armor humanity had ever seen. The leader's eyes gleamed with hatred, but there was also a glimmer of fear hidden beneath that anger. The Zarkons had underestimated the humans, and now they were paying the price. The leader raised his weapon, a massive energy sword that hummed with destructive power. Bonner, his plasma blade still crackling in his hand, faced his enemy with a calm expression. There was no fear, no hesitation. He had fought too long, too hard, to let this be the end. The two collided in a flurry of sparks, their blades clashing with a sound that echoed through the ship's halls. Bonner's movements were swift, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to dodge the leader's strikes with ease. Each time the Zarkon leader swung his weapon, Bonner was there, parrying with his plasma blade and striking back with brutal force. Their fight was a dance of destruction, a battle between two titans. The Zarkon leader was strong, but Bonner had something he didn't: human ingenuity. Bonner's adaptability, his ability to think on his feet, was what set him apart from the Zarkon leader. With every move, he anticipated his enemy's next strike. It wasn't just power that made Bonner a formidable warrior. It was his mind, his ability to outthink and outmaneuver his opponents. With a powerful swipe, Bonner disarmed the Zarkon leader, sending his weapon flying across the room. The Zarkon leader staggered back, surprised by the speed and precision of Bonner's attack. For the first time, Bonner saw it: a look of fear. The Zarkon leader had no idea how to deal with a foe who could think and adapt faster than he could. "Is this all your AI can do?" Bonner taunted, his voice cold and unwavering. "I thought you Zarkons were supposed to be the future of warfare, yet you're losing to something as simple as a human." The Zarkon leader's eyes burned with fury, but he was no longer the confident warrior he had once been. The realization had begun to settle in. Humans weren't just a primitive species. They weren't the weaklings the Zarkons had believed them to be. They were clever, resourceful, and capable of more than anyone had ever expected. Bonner didn't give the Zarkon leader a chance to recover. With a swift, powerful blow, he sent the leader to the ground, defeated. The flagship, once a symbol of the Zarkon Dominion's dominance, was now in the hands of humanity. But the victory came at a cost. The Genesis soldiers had made their way deep into the heart of the Zarkon ship, but there was still more work to be done. The flagship had sustained heavy damage, and it was only a matter of time before the Zarkons retaliated with everything they had. Yet for the first time in the war, the Genesis soldiers felt like they were truly winning. The Zarkons' once impenetrable defenses were falling apart. Their ships were being taken down, their armies scattered, and their morale shattered. As Bonner surveyed the wreckage of the Zarkon flagship, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. The humans were no longer the underdogs. They were no longer the species that others thought of as weak and primitive. They had shown the galaxy that they were a force to be reckoned with. Bonner turned to his squad, his expression hard but resolute. "We're not done yet," he said, his voice low and filled with determination. "This is just the beginning." With that, the Genesis soldiers continued their assault, pushing deeper into the Zarin flagship. The Zarkans had made a fatal mistake. They had underestimated humanity. And now, the consequences of that mistake were clear. The humans were no longer a distant, insignificant species. They were the force that would bring an end to the Zarkan Dominion's reign. The Zarkans had become the hunted, and the humans were the hunters. The war that had been raging across the galaxy was about to reach its climax. The humans, once considered weak and primitive, were now poised to deal a final devastating blow to the Zarkan Dominion. Their forces, led by the Genesis soldiers, had already shown their strength, but it was time for the ultimate strike, a battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy. The Zarkan home base, a fortress of unimaginable power, was now the target. The humans had prepared their final assault, an orbital bombardment that would obliterate everything in its path. This was the moment they had been waiting for. Commander Elias Cross stood on the bridge of the flagship, his face grim but determined. He had seen the horrors the Zarkans had caused, and now it was time to bring an end to their reign of terror. "We'll strike hard and fast," Commander Cross said, his voice unwavering. "This is our final chance. We do it now, or we risk everything." The Genesis soldiers, already battle-hardened and deadly, stood ready for their final mission. Bonner, the leader of the soldiers, knew what was at stake. The Zarkans had taken so much from humanity, and now it was their turn to pay the price. His eyes were filled with a mix of determination and sorrow. He had fought for so long, lost so many friends, and now it all came down to this one last battle. The assault began with a deafening roar as the humans launched their ships toward the Zarkan home base. The vast expanse of space seemed to tremble as the battle unfolded. The human ships, powered by cutting-edge technology, moved with precision, their every maneuver calculated to perfection. They were no longer the underdogs. They were the hunters, and the Zarkans were the prey. As the humans closed in on the Zarkan home base, their final weapon was unleashed. An EMP, electromagnetic pulse, technology that would cripple the Zarkans' entire AI network. The Zarkans, who had once relied so heavily on their advanced artificial intelligence, were now facing a disaster. The EMP sent a shockwave through the Zarkan system, knocking out their eye-controlled turrets, their cloaking devices, and their entire defense network. Inside the Zarkan base, the chaos was immediate. Their once impenetrable defenses were now useless, and their warships, once powered by AI, were now vulnerable. Panic spread among the Zarkan forces as their systems went dark, and the humans began their final push. The skies above the Zarkan home base lit up with massive explosions. Ships collided in space, sending debris flying in all directions. The humans and Zarkans clashed in a series of fast-paced combat scenes, their ships darting through the chaos, firing weapons at one another in a deadly dance. The battlefield was a frenzy of activity, and the sounds of destruction echoed across the void of space. On the surface of the Zarkan home planet, the humans launched their ground assault. The Genesis soldiers, now fully equipped and enhanced, stormed the planet's defenses with relentless precision. Bonner led the charge, his plasma blade cutting through the air as he and his team fought their way through the Zarkan forces. Every step was hard-earned, but they pressed on, knowing that this was their final chance to end the war. As Bonner fought, his thoughts were on the mission. He knew the importance of this battle, but he also knew the cost. The Genesis soldiers had already lost so many. Friends, comrades, and allies had fallen in the struggle, and now it was his turn to make a choice, one that would change the course of the war forever. The Zarkans, seeing their forces crumbling, made a last-ditch effort to defend their home. Their remaining warships, though weakened, tried to retaliate, but it was too late. The humans had already gained the upper hand, and their final assault was unstoppable. As the battle reached its peak, Bonner found himself face to face with the Zarkan leader, the same leader who had once mocked humanity. The leader, now desperate and enraged, swung his massive energy sword with all the strength he could muster. But Bonner, faster and more agile, dodged the strike and countered with a blow that sent the Zarkan leader stumbling back. Bonner knew that he couldn't defeat the Zarkan leader in this moment. The leader was too strong, and Bonner's mission was more important than personal glory. With the Zarkan leader momentarily disoriented, Bonner made a split-second decision that would save his team but cost him his life. In a daring move, Bonner activated a hidden device on his armor, a self-destruct mechanism designed to take down the Zarkan's central command hub. He knew it would mean the end for him, but the rest of the Genesis soldiers and the human forces would have a fighting chance to destroy the Zarkan leader's ship and bring an end to the war. "Go," Bonner shouted to his team, his voice filled with urgency. "You have to finish this. Don't stop. For all of us." With one last look at his comrades, Bonner activated the device. A massive explosion erupted around him, engulfing him in a blaze of light. The force of the explosion tore through the Zarkan base, destroying everything in its path. The ground shook, and the skies above the planet erupted in fiery explosions. The Zarkans were finished. The humans, despite their losses, had succeeded. The Zarkan Dominion's home base was destroyed, their warships obliterated, and their leader defeated. Humanity had won the war, but at a great cost. Bonner's sacrifice was not in vain. It had ensured the survival of his comrades and the destruction of the Zarkan threat once and for all. As the final explosions rang out across the battlefield, Commander Elias Cross stood on the bridge of the flagship, staring at the planet below. His heart was heavy with the weight of the lives lost, but he knew that they had won. Humanity had faced impossible odds and come out victorious. The Zarkans, once thought to be an unstoppable force, were no more. Bonner's sacrifice would not be forgotten. It would be remembered by every human who had fought alongside him, and by every generation to come. His death, though tragic, had paved the way for a future where humanity could finally live in peace. As the humans began to rebuild, they knew that this victory would forever mark the moment when they proved that even in the face of overwhelming odds, good could triumph over evil. The war was over, and humanity had emerged as the victors. The galaxy would never forget the day when the humans, once seen as weak and insignificant, defeated the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. And as for Bonner, his name would live on, a symbol of the ultimate sacrifice, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope could still shine through. The dust had settled over the battlefield, and the once vibrant skies above the Zarkan homeworld were now dark and silent. The final battle had been won. The Zarkan Dominion was no more, its mighty forces shattered and its plans for galactic domination thwarted by the unwavering strength of humanity. Commander Elias Cross stood on the bridge of the human flagship, staring at the planet below where the last remnants of the Zarkan's empire lay in ruin. Victory was bittersweet, and the weight of their sacrifices was heavy on his heart. The destruction of the Zarkan home base, combined with the deaths of countless soldiers, had been costly, but humanity had triumphed against all odds. In the blink of an eye, humanity had gone from a misunderstood species to one of the most feared and respected forces in the galaxy. The Zarkans, who had once seen them as primitive and weak, were now nothing more than a distant memory. Their once unshakable belief in their superiority had been shattered, and humanity stood as the undisputed victor. As the humans began their rebuilding efforts, the galactic community took notice. The Galactic Coalition, an alliance of powerful and technologically advanced species, had watched the war unfold from the sidelines, unsure of what to make of humanity's sudden rise to prominence. But now, with the Zarkans defeated, the Coalition saw Earth not as a fledgling primitive planet, but as a powerful new ally, a force to be reckoned with. Commander Elias Cross, standing before his troops in the aftermath of the battle, prepared to address them one last time. His voice echoed across the bridge of the flagship, carrying the weight of the victory they had earned through sacrifice and determination. "We may have been underestimated," Commander Cross began, his voice strong but filled with emotion. "The Zarkans thought us weak, insignificant. They thought we could never stand up to them. But this galaxy now knows. Humanity is a force to be reckoned with." His words resonated deeply with the soldiers who stood in front of him, each one reflecting on the long and difficult journey that had brought them here. They had fought hard, lost comrades, and faced challenges that no one had ever thought they could overcome. But they had proven everyone wrong. They had proven that humanity could rise to any challenge. As the commander's speech continued, the humans on Earth celebrated their victory. The Zarkans, once the most feared species in the galaxy, had fallen, and the humans stood victorious. People poured into the streets, cheering for their heroes, honoring those who had fought and sacrificed so much. The banners of Earth's military flew high, symbolizing a new era of peace and strength. Humanity had united like never before, and together they had achieved the impossible. But the war had left deep scars on the galaxy. The Zarkan Dominion had not just been a threat to Earth, but had also been a source of fear for many other races. Now that the Zarkans were gone, other species had to reckon with the reality of what had happened. The Coalition's forces, once cautious and skeptical of humanity, now saw Earth in a different light. Humanity's courage, resourcefulness, and technological prowess had earned them the respect of those who had once doubted them. The once mighty Zarkans had relied too heavily on their artificial intelligence and advanced technology, believing that their superiority was built on the strength of their machines. But humanity had shown them something the Zarkans could never have predicted: the strength of the human spirit. The Zarkans had underestimated humanity's capacity for innovation, determination, and resilience. They had believed in their machines and cold logic, but it was humanity's creativity, emotion, and adaptability that had led to their downfall. The final resolution to the good versus evil battle was clear. The Zarkans, with their blind faith in AI supremacy, had fallen because they had lost sight of what made them truly strong, what made them human. Meanwhile, humanity's victory was not just a triumph of technology, but of the heart, mind, and soul. It was a testament to the power of love, sacrifice, and the will to survive against all odds. As the victory celebrations spread across Earth, the skies above began to fill with starships. Humanity's fleet, once a small force lost among the stars, now filled the heavens like a new dawn breaking over the galaxy. The starships, symbols of humanity's strength and resolve, stood as a beacon of hope for the future. Humanity's presence in the galaxy was no longer something to be feared or underestimated. It was a symbol of hope, a reminder that the impossible could be achieved. The destruction of the Zarkan Dominion was only the beginning of a new era. Earth, now a respected and powerful member of the galactic community, stood ready to lead and guide other species who had long been oppressed by the Zarkans. The war was over, but the work was just beginning. Humanity, with its newfound allies, would help rebuild what had been broken, offering peace and stability to those who had lived in fear for far too long. The legacy of humanity's victory would endure for generations to come. The soldiers who had fought on the front lines, the civilians who had supported them, and the leaders who had guided them, all of their sacrifices had led to this moment. The ultimate sacrifice made by soldiers like Bonner, who had given their lives to protect their comrades and secure humanity's future, would never be forgotten. His memory, and the memory of all those who had fallen, would be honored in the annals of history. As Earth looked to the future, they knew that peace would not come easily. There would be challenges ahead, and not all species in the galaxy would welcome their newfound power. But humanity had proven, once and for all, that they were more than just a primitive race. They were a force for good, and they would do whatever it took to protect the galaxy and ensure that such an evil, like the Zarkan Dominion, would never rise again. The final scene showed Earth's sky, now filled with the silhouettes of starships flying across the horizon. The scene was one of peace, of hope, and of promise. The fires of war had burned brightly, but now the embers glowed softly, lighting the way for a future that was brighter than ever before. The galaxy had learned to respect humanity, and humanity had learned that together they could overcome anything. Humanity had become a shining example of strength, courage, and hope. The victory was not just theirs. It was a victory for all who had ever believed in the possibility of a better future. And with that, humanity's legacy was cemented, forever remembered as the race that rose from the ashes and proved that good could always overcome evil, no matter how great the odds. The galaxy would never forget the day humanity stood victorious.